Brazil, though. I love Brazil.
Yeah. Have you been here? Like how many times?
So many
A
times. I
lot.
actually lived in Rio for a few months, and then lived in the Amazon jungle, traveled around for several months. So yeah, and I've been to Brazil many, many times. It's one of my favorite countries in
That's
the world.
awesome. That's
And I'm not
awesome.
Brazilian.
Yes, Mariana, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to be talking to you. And I got goosebumps because it's a really pleasure. And you're like an inspiration. As a journalist, you're an inspiration for me. But I do the easy part because I do entertainment, I do documentaries, movies, and you do the hard part of the journalist. When did you find out that you want to do this hard part of the like investigate journalist?
Well, I decided I wanted to be a journalist when I was 12 years old. I used to watch the nightly news with my family in Portugal and watch these anchors on Portuguese television talk about things happening all over the world. And I just thought they had so much knowledge and so what incredible memory and all these facts. And I had no idea they were reading from a teleprompter. But I remember thinking, oh my God, I want to have this amount of knowledge. I want to be just like them. And so after I graduated from school in Portugal, I started applying for Columbia University journalism school, and I didn't get in the first year, and I didn't get in the second year. In the third year, I flew to New York and I knocked on the dean's door, and I told him that I wanted to be a journalist. He sat me down. We had a long conversation, and that year I was accepted. And that day that I was accepted was one of the happiest days of my entire life. And a few months later, I arrived in New York to attend Columbia University. At the time, still with the idea that I wanted to do sort of nightly news journalism, breaking news. And 9/11 happened 3 weeks after I arrived in New York. And I was the only Portuguese journalist in Manhattan at the time. So I ended up doing the sort of the first live reports from Manhattan. And I remember walking down to the streets after the first live report, where I was so excited that I'd been given this opportunity and my career as a journalist was about to start, everything I'd ever dreamed of. And then walking down to the streets and started seeing the first people carrying signs looking for their loved ones. And I sort of remember this enormous, I immediately started crying and feeling that, that this pull towards, I realized then that the journalism that I wanted to do was more in depth, and I really wanted to contextualize what was happening. And at the end, I really wanted to go deep into these worlds and understand how things like this are possible. So a year later, I actually moved to Syria, and I started my work as a freelance investigative journalist and did the first report about Mujahideen, the jihadists crossing from Syria into Iraq to fight against the Americans. So I would say
Wow.
it was sort of 9/11 totally changed my journalism path.
Yeah, wow, it's incredible. It's a journey, and you're very courage. And I don't have that courage. I do have for some stuff, but not for this one. And it's incredible. But let's talk about Traffic, the series that you're gonna be premiering National Geographic. What was like the first inspiration for that, and this partnership with National Geographic?
Absolutely. So I've been covering the underworlds and black markets around the world for many, many years. And, one thing that I realize is that we know so much about the formal economy. We know everything that happens. There are whole networks and magazines out there and organizations devoted to analyzing everything that happens in the formal economy. And yet the informal economy makes for almost half of the global economy. And so I saw that there's an opportunity here to access a world that is little, that few people know about. And on the other hand, I started working with National Geographic, and I realized that they were sort of the perfect partners for this series. They truly still believe in boots on the ground, old school journalism, which I really appreciate. And they are ultimately, I think we share a very important value, which is curiosity. NatGeo is known for their curiosity, for going out there and for their exploration of the world. And it's always led by this lens, this curiosity, this lens of curiosity, right? And I think that's always been my case as well. I've always said that I'm so incredibly lucky because I'm actually paid to satisfy my own curiosity. I read this once that a journalist said that, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. I'm paid to satisfy my own curiosity. I can't believe that people actually pay me to do exactly what I love to do. And so I think that I found that NatGeo was the perfect partner for this show, and they have been. It's about exploration at heart through a lens of being curious about the world.
Yeah, even though you've been covering this black market, this other like this parallel universe, did you find out anything that you never heard before, or anything that you like it was new for you?
Absolutely. I think I had never realized just how prevalent and how black markets are everywhere. A lot of the scenes we filmed for season 1 actually happened within 10-15 minute drive from my home in Los Angeles. We saw an arms deal happening just 10 minutes from my house on a regular weeknight at 9 or 10 p.m. where we saw a car being packed with AK-47s and AR-15s out in the open on the streets. We spent time doing, one of the stories was about sex trafficking, and I spent a lot of time with pimps and sex traffickers, again, just a few miles from my house, seeing their operations and seeing how they, control and treat and operate, and how they treat and control the women that work for them. And I think there's a misunderstanding that black markets happen in faraway places, in hidden locations, in underground worlds, but none of that is true. They happen all around us. The sex trafficking victim can be your neighbor. The drug deal can be happening at your doorstep, and the gun trafficking operation can be all handled in your backyard, and you have no idea that this is happening. But it is, and we found it, and we saw it, and we're able to film it.
Yeah, and it's so close to us. Can be, especially like I'm from São Paulo. I lived in São Paulo for the longest, and I can see that sometimes happen like 2 blocks from my house.
Absolutely.
And we used to live in let's say in a good neighborhood. It's not like in the favelas or anything like that. It's incredible.
It's true. And in many ways, it's sort of the perfect place, right, to hide. You just hide in plain sight. They know that where law enforcement is going to target are, more suspicious places like would look more like trafficking areas, whether that's sort of underprivileged neighborhoods, or, you have this idea of it all happening in basements or attics, super hidden spaces. And no, they many times it's hidden in plain sight. It truly is.
Yeah, maybe it's in a garage, whatever, next to you. And
absolutely.
And yeah. And there is for you, like, I think in this type of like documentary series, those type of like this type of journalists, you need to gain trust, and you need to trust them as well. How did you deal with that? How did you manage that?
It's in many of the stories, it's been months or even years of gaining sources, of building trust. As you said, building trust is incredibly important. It is a lot of times what happens is if it's sort of the first contact that we're making with a criminal organization, for example, usually it's very much the same things that happen. There's sort of a first meeting. A lot of times it's either with my team or a couple of people, or sometimes just myself, where no cameras and no recording devices are allowed. And they just want to sit down with me and talk to me. And truly what they're trying to figure out is if I'm law enforcement or if I'm really a journalist like I say I am. And so it's all about trust. And in those moments, they're sometimes, I've been to these meetings where it's just me in the middle of a night with one guy, a criminal, working in a criminal organization. And the only way that they will trust you and treat you well and protect you is if you trust them too. So from the beginning, I would say the most important thing is to not act suspicious, not be fearful, or if you are fearful, not show it, and to truly sort of show them that you trust them, that you know that your life is in their hands and you truly trust them in this moment. There was one interview, for example, that we did with a scammer in Jamaica, that when we arrived at this abandoned house, and he was surrounded by 3 or 4 of his gunmen with AK-47s. And he's sitting down, and I'm interviewing him. And midway through the interview, he said, "You know what? You know what, Mariana? I was actually thinking of robbing you, right? My plan was to come here and rob you and steal your very expensive camera gear, and
God.
sort of hold you at gunpoint and rob you. But talking to you, I decided you're a very cool girl." He said I was a cool girl. Essentially, I think what he meant was that I was there. He realized that I was there. I was coming with no judgment. I was there to listen to him and to try to understand. I was there with empathy. And that was important for him. This was an opportunity for him to tell us his story and to show why he does what he does. And that's, he says, the moment where he decided that he wasn't going to harm us, and that he would just continue the interview, which I was incredibly grateful for.
Oh my God, that's amazing. That's an amazing experience. But I was like, have you ever thought about giving up?
No.
Or
never.
No, never.
The moment that somebody tells me that a story is difficult to gain access to, or that a person doesn't want to talk to me, the moment a journalist hears that word no is the moment that I certainly decide it's the story that I want to tell, and the person that I want to interview, and the world that I want to gain access into. So definitely that's when there's a challenge, that's when I know it's a good story and that needs to be told.
Yeah. And this series Trafficked, how was I know everything must be a challenge, but how was the most challenge part of put this series together?
The most challenging part is really gaining access into these worlds. We really do try with the series to draw the curtain and show sort of behind the stage what's happening, and how difficult it is. All the whole journalism process is part of the series. The first meetings, when access falls through and we are left with nothing, all of that is part of the series, and we try to make it because we want to show just how difficult it is and how these worlds operate in reality. But you will see that is always the most challenging, is gaining access. But we don't have a story without access, so quitting is never an option.
Yeah. And this first season, you mentioned Los Angeles. Did you go to any other places, or you focused just in LA?
Oh, the first season, we traveled all over the world. Jamaica, Mexico, Israel, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. We traveled all around the world. Peru, Colombia. Yeah, we traveled all around the world. I mean, the whole series is about global trafficking networks.
Cool. And everything was shot before the pandemic, or
everything was shot. Our last shoot was actually the last week of February 2020. Wow. So just before quarantine started. And then we stayed and we were in the editing process until July. And in July, NatGeo ordered another season, 10 more episodes, which we were super excited about. But I was all extremely nervous. I didn't know the world had changed so much, and I wasn't sure what kind of a world we were going to find and how the pandemic had affected black markets. But what I found was actually black markets exploded during the pandemic, whether it's drugs or sex trafficking or scams or you name it, it just exploded at a time. And it does make sense. At a time when there's an economic downturn, many times people lose their jobs and they have to find a way to survive. So a lot of times they turn to the black markets. So I think it surprised me and shocked me to find out that actually that these markets are operating, that they're stronger than ever, and that this is the most important time to be doing a series like this.
Yeah, no, it is. I can only imagine how much people are going after animals, drugs,
absolutely,
and human beings, and even organs like hearts. I don't know.
Absolutely. Any way a person can make money, they'll figure it out. People will figure it out. That money, as one of the Jamaican scammers we interviewed said, Mariana, money is the root of all evil. And that has stayed with me.
Wow. No, it's incredible. I love the work that you do, and that's why you're award winning. That's why you're really good journalist. And aside from this series, are you doing already thinking something else to do? What else you have in your plate?
We also have a podcast. we have a Trafficked podcast coming out where in each episode we interview a former trafficker, somebody who worked in the trafficking, was a trafficker, and was caught by law enforcement. And it's sort of the up and the down, the rise and the fall of traffickers around the world. So it's an accompanying podcast that's coming out at the same time that I'm really excited about.
Yeah. Now that question is like something that I'm curious. How did you what did you do to take your mind out of this when you're like with your family or not doing your job? Can you do that? Can you separate that?
When I'm back with my family, how do I separate it?
Yeah. How do you do? Did you like checking the news? What did you do? Like you watch Disney movies? What did you do?
I drink a lot of wine. That's what I do. I drink a lot of wine.
Yeah. No, because it's strong. It's like very heavy topic. You know what I mean? And
absolutely. And the only way that I can do this in a healthy manner and that I can stay sane is by separating the two, separating my work time from my family and friend time. And I think I've sort of been doing this for so long that I am able to do it. I am, however, a news addict, so I read the news all the time. And I'm also a workaholic, so I'm constantly, while reading the news or anything that's happening in my life, I'm always trying to figure out if it fits into something, or is it something that's piquing my curiosity and that I want to do. But ultimately, I'm also a very sociable person. I'm a normal person. I love to have fun. I love to drink wine with my friends. I love to travel with my family, and I try to do that as much as possible.
That's awesome. Mariana, it's a pleasure. I'm so proud, like as a woman, as a Brazilian, as a Latina, and as a journalist. I'm so proud to be talking to you and to be, and to be able to share this production. And I think you'll be amazing. I watched some of like the 3 first episodes, and I think it's amazing. I cannot wait for season 2 and for everything that you do. Thank you so much
you're
for your
so
time.
Sweet. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Of course. Muito obrigada.
Beijo grande.
Beijo grande. Tchau. Bye. Obrigada. Bye. If you like this video, don't forget to comment, to like, and subscribe to our channel right here.